Welcome to a webinar from Project Management for Change. My name is Elise Stevens, and today the fantastic Laura Barnard and Kendall Lott are here to talk about the Project Management Day of Service and what's available. Hello, Laura and Kendall.
Hello.
It's so fantastic that your Project Management Day of Service is come into operation, and I think that it offers project managers a fantastic opportunity to contribute to their community. Just can you give us an overview about what the Project Management Day of Service is all about?
Yeah, right. I'll start with a piece of that. I think. I mean, in the highest level, it's about bringing the skills and talents, but more specifically, the trained skills that we have as project managers to bear on our communities. And we found it's part of a larger context of, I believe, of using your talents or an approach that's happening here in the States around skills-based volunteering. So this idea that you take skills to go and be part of a volunteer organization or to volunteer with that skill set. So in that larger context, for us, what this meant was we've worked really hard to be project managers. We've taken the test. We've spent the thousands of hours to even be allowed to sit the test. And many of us work together either as competitors or in the same companies or in some cases in the same associations. So it's a chance for us as a project management community to take our skills to those who actually need project management. It's not just that they need labor support, project management. So then the question became, how do you help people who need project management? I mean, what kind of people walk around saying, I need project management? Well, it turns out there are some people like that. They're often managers of nonprofit organizations or charitable organizations. In the States, we would call them charities in many cases. So these organizations are obviously running and performing to mission and having to do things based on grants and funds they have, which are projects, right? They get started and then there's a moment when they stop. They try and have impact and they stop. But it turns out they're not going to invest in many cases a lot in the typical overhead to make things, better, because they're really trying to get those economic resources directly to bear on the communities that they serve. So what we realized was we could put all that together. So when you put it together, you have a lot of skilled project managers who have the supply of labor needed to meet a demand that would allow us to have an impact in our community in a way that as individuals or just trying to help one group can't. So the question became, how do you put all that together and make that happen? And that becomes the story of how this was developed and how it gets this thing.
Well, it's a fantastic concept. What was some of the reactions you got when you first started it?
Well, it depends. I would say it was mixed. When we first developed the idea and started to just go for it, it was a lot of mixed reaction, honestly. There was a lot of, well, what are you trying to do and why are you trying to do it and how are you going to find the nonprofits and do you really think project managers are going to want to engage? And we had this whole saying about that, we were making the impossible possible because quite frankly, a lot of folks said that we couldn't pull it off in the beginning. But what we found when we did the very first event on Martin Luther King Day, a National Day of Service in the US on 2015, was that we actually, the response was amazing. Tears, joy, happiness, just people being blown away by the fact that there was two sides to this. The nonprofit community didn't really know about project management as a whole. Some of them did, but most of them, and especially the nonprofits that we were serving, didn't really have a lot of exposure to project management. So they were blown away that there was a group of people whose job it was to help get things done in this fashion. So that was pretty impressive for them. And the project managers, many of them went into this event saying, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to help because I don't know enough about their particular nonprofit. And personally, I've spent a career teaching people, project managers, that your subject matter expertise is project management, not finance or marketing or sales or product development necessarily. It's project management. It's using your unique skills and techniques and tools and best practices to get things done. So when they came out of the room, they were blown away themselves about how much impact they could have, how they could use their unique project management skills to give back to the community in a really impactful, meaningful way. For most of them, it was the first time they were able to use their skills to give back to the community and have such impact. So it was pretty phenomenal.
And I've got another comment, but I think even before that is to just, what we haven't described is actually what happened. So
Yeah.
we felt it was necessary to take our skills to help with nonprofits, right? So the organizing principle is finding a group of project managers in one area that we could coalesce. That was our job. And then take them to nonprofits. And to do that, there was a series of steps that maybe we can get into. But the event itself, I mean, we've now done it twice here in the DC area and once in the Houston area. And why don't you describe the event a little bit? Because that's the punchline about what was really happening.
Right. And so the first event in DC, in the DC area, Northern Virginia, DC, and Maryland, was about 350 project managers and close to 100 nonprofit organizations together in one room on one day for an all-day scoping and planning event. So the nonprofit brought to bear their most pressing critical mission project or initiative that they were trying to get off the ground, and the project managers came with their know-how in how to help organizations scope and plan projects. And we put them together in teams. You'd have one nonprofit that would have a few representatives from their nonprofit and several project managers coming together to facilitate the scoping and planning process and build out this, roadmap that at the end of the day, the nonprofit walked out of the room with a roadmap in their hands and said, this is what you need to do to go get this done.
Mm-hmm.
So why I thought that was important is you end up with hundreds of people in a room at one time, solving at any given time 40 to 80 problems going on. And we found a whole range of problems to address or opportunities to help improve the shape of a project or even define a project. So back to your question now about what did people say? So when I first had the idea, I literally stood on a chair in a bar and announced it to one of the Project Management Institute chapter leadership after one of the dinner meetings. Some of the board members were hanging out and some of the other folks that were part of the volunteer group in the leadership. And I said, I have this idea, what do you think? And it was overwhelming support. So that sounded great, right? So that was just the beginning of really what was going to happen for the next 8.5 months roughly, which was, great idea, I can't believe it, why didn't I think of it, this is amazing, it'll never happen.
Yeah.
Great idea, it'll never happen. And we frankly have some approaches that people might want to consider to do that, which I don't think we've gotten into yet. I can highlight a couple of them here, but one of the things we did to activate was not just me standing on a chair and getting Laura and a couple others to sign up with me real quick, but we actually built, because we're project managers, we built a project management team. So we built a large project management team, which itself needed managers to run. So we had volunteers involved in establishing essentially an organization.
Yep.
And we believe that's a best practice now. So when you talk about this as a guidebook or a cookbook or some way of thinking for others how to get started, it's don't do this alone. I felt like in a lot of times we were the key drivers to it. And the critical point, back to your point as well, even our PMO had flagging, not so much interest, but a sense of how does this all come together? We've been working for months and growing our PMO, and we're trying to line people up and what will happen. So a couple of things there. We had a full-blown organization we had to build, and we worked with a partner on the nonprofit side. And that's one of the keys, is we didn't own connecting to all the nonprofits directly. We worked with a large nonprofit, actually a couple of them in different contexts. The Taproot Foundation and Points of Light are two, but there will be others to work with as well, who always engage with other nonprofits and are aware of their needs and help them with their maturity. So what we did is, as a group, Laura and I founded a group of project managers to work in a project management office to then engage with one partner who then connected to the nonprofits.
Right.
That's how we could pull off having anywhere between, I think the second year you were at 4, how big was the second year?
The second year, well, we had about,
the one we just did in 2016.
The one we did in 2016 had almost 600 people in the room. So between nonprofit leaders, project managers, sponsors, subject matter expert consultants in various areas, and then the PMO itself, which was 40 volunteers in the first year and almost 65 volunteers in the second year. As we were expanding it, our PMO got bigger. But it was about 100 projects, again, the second year, this time all at one time. In the first year, we split it a morning session and an afternoon session. The second year, we did the big bang and had everybody in the room all at once, which was pretty cool when we had the SBA administrator, a White House official, come and wrap up the day, to see this room full of all of these project managers and nonprofit leaders coming together to make some pretty significant changes.
So back to the thing, what we found was, again, your question, what we found was even our PMO in that kind of setup would have flagging interest at some point. Not so much interest, but a sense of how does this work? And the one thing that Laura and I had is, and probably part of what I was bringing that first year in ways, is it goes without question that it will work.
Yeah.
Somebody has to believe, and I didn't believe because I wanted it to be true.
Yeah.
It could not happen because if you think about it, we've aligned people who do with people who need people who do. And it's just a function now of logistics. Now, it might not be as big as we want. We might have some of the wrong paperwork to work with and maybe not get all the best projects or be the most helpful. And there's things to learn in that. But the principle of supply and demand here, where we were the market makers putting them together, was absolutely, it never dawned on me that it wouldn't work.
That's right.
And so there's a series of things we had to do. Again, I described part of the structure, and we saw it, we heard right now with Laura some of the outcomes of the day. But it was going to happen. So I think some sense of purposefulness and a driven leadership helped handle the fact that there was this constant sense of, great idea, it'll never happen. If the people had said it was a stupid idea, we might have stopped. I don't know. But great idea, it'll never happen. Well, that's just a challenge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, in fact, frankly, that's just operations now. I'm almost not even interested anymore, right? This is very clear this is going to happen now, right? So anyway, so now, Lo, these 27 minutes later, we've answered your first question. Do continue.
Well, that's a great concept. And here in Australia, we're going to be doing a small one or a large one. I don't know what it's going to be yet. But the question is, so how do we start?
Yeah, so the good news is that even during the first event, we had the idea to write down what we were doing.
Yay!
And we actually followed a lot of project management best practices. Now, of course, we learned a lot from the first year, and we've done talks on the lessons learned of the first one, and I have a background of building PMOs for a living and did so for organizations before I started my consulting company called PMO Strategies to help bring about project management organizations that can actually get things done. So this was a great opportunity to apply some of those best practices to that world. And it's funny because now I will say things like, listen, you've not run a tough PMO until you've run a PMO of all volunteers, let me tell you. So you've got it easy if you actually had people you could pay to do the work. So, but what we did is we built this playbook that explains all of the steps that we went through in that first year to make it happen. And then when we used some of that in the development and planning and execution of the second year, and have now gone back and updated that playbook. I've got a draft in my inbox right now to take a look at, an updated version that has all of the lessons learned from the things that we did and improvements. And Kendall actually had a great idea that we applied the second year, was a whole team of what we call document historians. So these were the people that were documenting everything that we were doing, participating in the meetings we were having, watching the process, asking questions, so that we could have a rich playbook that explains, here's the things you have to do to get this event to happen. And also internally, now that we have a nonprofit called Project Management for Change that supports these events, we are building an entire infrastructure of liaisons, project management organization liaisons, who work with PMI chapters or PMO offices in organizations, or any group of project managers that want to put together an event like this. We are building an infrastructure to support them. In fact, I'm speaking in April at the Region 5 conference for PMI, because and that includes the DC area, the entire region is planning one for 2017's Martin Luther King Day. Wow. And I just spoke with the New York City PMI chapter Wednesday, had dinner with some of the board members there. They're looking to see if we can do one in their region for Martin Luther King Day. So that means there's a lot of coordination that needs to happen if we're all going to do this on the same day. And that's where this playbook and these liaisons that we are putting together, volunteers, they're going to help, I give each chapter, each project management organization the hand-holding support they need to put an event like this together. And they don't have to all be 100 nonprofit events, right? But if everybody's doing them, we are going to be impacting all over the world, you know, and helping support organizations that are trying to help improve our communities and the world as a whole, you know, one project at a time.
So let me go back to your question for a second, though. You asked specifically how would you get started. So let's frame some of the key characteristics we discovered. So we were trying to do it a large one-on-one time, in one day. The reason for that was if we didn't go big, it would just be another example of a small effort somewhere, and some people might be interested, right. But it would actually, the larger we made the message, the more compelling it was. It created its own gravity that way, its own gravitas, as well as kind of its own gravity in a way, right?
Yeah.
So also for us, it's very important. Martin Luther King Day, obviously, Martin Luther King being an icon in America, but in fact globally, for us, that's a big day of service. As Laura said, it's a National Day of Service. And so we needed a large affair to be able to pull people in, because the good news is it's a National Day of Service. The bad news is everyone's doing something, so it's hard to kind of differentiate and have someone in there in that case. So we wanted it to be big in our case. So key things. At the time that we did it, and you just made a reference to the Project Management Institute. So this was not done through the Project Management Institute at all. That wasn't the purpose or the approach. But at the time that I had the idea and initially got started, both of us were sitting on boards in our local chapters. And in fact, I was the chair of the Washington, D.C. chapter. So I had some kind of connections with other people in the region to get to the number of project managers that we wanted. So one thing I would suggest to get started is to find where your group of project managers are. For us, it was working with, not sponsored by, but working with local chapters of the Project Management Institute, because in the DC area there are a number of them, and we have a lot of project managers here who have signed up for chapters, right? So we have a density for that. We used our chapter connections to help stimulate interest and to keep the flow of information. So working with a large group of project managers is one key. Secondly, get that information flowing. We set up the PMO to actually run this, right? We kind of set up, you can almost think of it as a nonprofit or as a chapter. It was a bunch of project managers volunteering their time at night to work together to design an organization, to look for money, to look for marketing, to help look for other nonprofits, to keep the relationship with our partner up, to get the event ready. We actually did event planning, and this is all volunteer. I mean, event planning is a whole industry, we did that. So the PMO, I think, is a key way to get started, is to put people in defined roles. Project managers love this. Defined roles and processes and all of this. So her playbook describes this. So one answer is going to be, and get her playbook, right? Get the Project Management for Change playbook, that'll help. But another key characteristic is work with a partner on the demand for this labor, because it's really hard, or it was in our case, it's really hard for a group of volunteers to know enough nonprofits. Now, it's possible if you wanted to do one with 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 nonprofits, you could know enough and orchestrate that. Right. But we were going big, so what happened was, I don't know 300 nonprofits, but I know an organization that knows 300 nonprofits. I know a couple organizations that know 300. So that was the next thing, was to pull that off. And I think the next thing that Laura and I tackled after agreeing to establish a PMO and trying to populate it,
yes.
It was first it was me, and then it was her, and then it was me and her and 2 people, and then 5 people, and whatever, right? The next thing we actually got, and this is really important when you are picking a specific and a physical day of service, a physical interaction, because bookmark that, because you could do this virtually as well.
Right, we're looking into that.
And adding to that, we're looking into that, and others have done similar ones, is you have to get the venue.
Yes.
And the venue is expensive. And it always comes with some sort of, at least in the States, it comes with a whole kind of package, right? So we were successful 2 years running in using 2 different types of venues. One, we played into a local business need. We're in an area that is being rebranded and is of an urban environment here in Tyson's Corner outside of Virginia. It's kind of a tech corner.
It's called Tyson's now.
Now it's called Tyson's, right? The rebranding is Tyson's. There you go. See, I'm old, right? As they were rebranding it, though, the hotels had all upgraded. So they wanted to see the splash of having hundreds of people pouring into their doors. And then, of course, when we got the White House to send a secretary, cabinet-level secretary, it became an even better thing. And then later we moved to a university setting this year, University of Maryland in College Park, which was fantastic to have a venue. So the next way to get started is get a venue. And then, of course, it's the money chase. You got to figure out, do you need money? Because you got to buy a lot of granola bars. So you got to do something. And you have, is the AB. Now you have these things about, are you going to use flip charts or computers and things? So you walk down launching an event. It becomes event planning, but there's this whole marketing and collection. So the other part that you put in right after the venue that Laura drove, and you should tell them about it, is we got a partner on the technology side so that we can coordinate and consolidate, right? This is really just like a business. You have employees that you're trying to recruit and pull in, and you have the market, the nonprofits, and in our case are like our clients, right, that we're trying to pull in. And the way to do that is through a CRM system.
Right. So if you want to learn more about the actual steps before we publish the playbook, which is coming soon, the new version, you can go to our website, PMDoS.org, and under a new menu item called PM Organizations, we actually have the video that Kendall and I recorded for International Project Management Day, and it has the high-level steps of the order of things that you need to do to help walk people through it and prepare them for it. But we've really taken a lot of the guesswork out of it, and quite frankly, if done well, and if you can find the right organizations, a lot of this stuff we were able to get pro bono or in-kind support. So I have to give a shout out to the Sheridan Tysons, because they were the first ones to host this, and they did it completely. They gave us their grand ballroom, an atrium, a whole bunch of other meeting rooms, all for free. So that was really helpful. And of course we paid for food, but we even got a discount on that. So that's your biggest upfront cost, is finding the location and covering the food. Of course, that's where you go after sponsors or grants and those kind of things to help offset those costs. And then our technology provider has just been phenomenal, and they've been with us since the beginning. They were first I went and found space, and second I actually crashed a board meeting of our wonderful partners, BIS Global, and they have a system called Charity Engine, which is charityengine.net, and that's a fantastic CRM specifically for nonprofit organizations to do all of their, whether it's member management or their stakeholder engagement, fundraising, all kinds of things that you can do through their system that specifically supports the nonprofit community. Absolutely fantastic software and incredible organization that's been supporting us. And then of course this year we have the University of Maryland, who's been a sponsor to us to help us pull it off this year. And John Cable, who runs the Project Management Center of Excellence for the University of Maryland, he actually built that program. He and the University of Maryland have been a sponsor of ours since the beginning. So we have an incredible number of founding sponsors, including HP. HP Enterprise has been with us since the beginning, and other organizations. And I think a lot of it is reaching out to the corporate social responsibility arm of an organization and saying, hey, we need some help, and here's what's in it for you. Just like any project manager needs to know and communicate in every message about change or anything they're trying to do, give them their WIFM. And so if you can give them their WIFM and the what's in it for me, and find a way to make it a win-win situation, you may be surprised at how many organizations and volunteers and potential sponsors or in-kind supporters you can find.
That's fantastic, and that's a really good step-by-step guide. And I'm sure with this inspirational video plus the playbook, we'll have a lot more Project Management Day of Service around the world, which is fantastic.
Absolutely.
What would be the next steps for people to, they're inspired by this video, they want to do it? Should they just go to your website to have a look, the projectmanagementdayofservice.org, to have a look?
Well, I think the first thing that they can do is go to PMDoS.org, projectmanagementdayofservice.org, but it is just PMDoS.org. Check out the website, learn more about it, check out the pictures. We're posting videos. We have several videos on there of us talking about this event and how it started, and we did the International Project Management Day video, but we've also got a video where we talked to the very first chapter that ever heard about this, the Montgomery County, Maryland chapter, we spoke to 300 or 400 of their members at an event last year talking about the lessons learned of this event. So that video is on the website, a short and long version of that. And then, yes, they can contact us at info@pmdos.org to find out how to get started, and we can pull them into our program, our Kickstart program, to help them get started on doing the event themselves. And then we're going to hold regular recorded calls and communications throughout the year. People might have different timelines. We know for sure that we are going to be doing one, a very large one, at different locations all over the U.S., at least the U.S., but hopefully Australia too, on Martin Luther King Day of 2017. So that is our next big bang event, but you don't have to do it on that day. Houston, the PMI Houston chapter did one last fall in October that we were invited to as guests, and we were able to go scope and plan projects with nonprofits. So it's kind of cool to start this whole thing and then actually be able to be a project management volunteer and see how amazing it is when it all comes together. So we're expanding it, and organizations all over the place are starting to do these themselves.
One other thing I'm going to give a personal shout out to, I actually interviewed the executive director of the nonprofit that could help us on the other side to ask, from his perspective, what was the demand for something like this. And he gave a great discussion with that, and people can look at that under the Project Management Point of View podcast. Where that was one of our earlier podcasts, but that's in iTunes under PMIWDC. You can find it there. It's about 13-minute podcast on the transformative value of project management in the nonprofit sector. And he's giving his overview as a leader, as a nonprofit executive, on how this would be helpful. And that helped us frame and understand the need.
Right.
So we didn't drive that. I just found somebody who would talk about it. So that's an opportunity for people to pick that up too. And I think actually you have that on the website as well. So you may see a small podcast there through the website.
You can see it on the website.
That explains it from the nonprofit side.
Right.
That's fantastic.
I would say that, pulling off something like this can sound daunting, but we've really made it so it's not that bad. And it's not so bad. Learn from our lessons, learn from our mistakes, learn from all the experience we have now doing these and expanding it. It can really be a manageable event, and especially for organizations that do symposiums or professional development days. This really is an event planning exercise, just like many of your other events that many of them already do. So you want to have a team of people, and you want to figure out where you're going to do it and how much it's going to cost and all of those things. But that's just like any PDD or symposium that many organizations already do on an annual basis. So this is just another opportunity, but wow, the impact that you can have. And never underestimate the value as a project manager that you have. And for the nonprofits, it's not, you have no idea how much we can help you. And once you do, you won't be able to live without us. And one thing that we often compare is that nonprofits are organizations that live in worlds of not enough time, not enough resources, not enough funding, not enough for these mission critical objectives that they're trying to accomplish. And project managers have grown up in the world of not enough. We never have enough time to get our projects done. We never have all the resources that we need. So you have two communities coming together that feel that same pain, and project managers have learned how to work within those constraints to go get big things done. And that's what we have to offer. And I think project managers, it's time for us as project managers to be able to say, we are the ones that can help change the world one project at a time. And we have a lot to offer. And this is an opportunity to raise the profile of the project management profession globally by having impact, using our hard-earned skills, and showing everybody this is not the accidental profession. This is not a second-class citizen in the professional services community. We are the magic makers, and we have a lot to offer.
That's fantastic. Well, Kendall and Laura, thank you very much for your time today. That has been fantastic. And I hope everyone's enjoyed this webinar on the Project Management Day of Service and what we as project managers can contribute.
Thank you for giving us a
Thank
chance to
you
talk
so
about it.
much.